Hey guys, it's Jake Kaufman and welcome back to Way Outside. I've returned after a brief one-day hiatus and I'm so excited to be back and talk about last night's playoff action. Not only did we get an amazing performance from my all-time favorite player, which we'll definitely dive into that, probably to an extent that's too much, but we also unfortunately saw an injury that just might change who this year's champion will be. Without further ado, let's dive right in. First game of the night was the Miami Heat, the number one seed, taking on the Atlanta Hawks, the eighth seed in game two. And while game one is a blowout for the Heat, this game was a lot closer. Even the final score of 115 and 105 Miami doesn't really indicate it. It was a really close game. It was a 3-point game with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter or so. And it was honestly very intense. As a person who's a Heat fan because of Jimmy, there was points where I was definitely got worried. I really thought the Hawks were making enough of a charge and really had a chance to win it, honestly. Bojan Bogdanovic, no, Bogdan Bogdanovic, had an incredible fourth quarter. I believe he had 19 of his 29. He was hitting some insane shots. He hit this one step back over Jimmy, where Jimmy defended it basically as well as he could. And it was a sidestep almost to the point where he was behind the backboard and he just switched it. And I was like, well, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing that can be done on those kind of shots. If he's going to, you can't really ask for anything more on those kind of things. But yeah, the Hawks did play a lot better in this game. They tried more defensively. They made better efforts defensively. They did do a better job forcing turnovers. I mean, the Heat only had 14, but I believe they had a much lower number in game one, or at least they just didn't feel like it. And the Hawks did mostly a better job contesting shots, at least for throughout parts of the game. Fourth quarter it got pretty bad, but definitely in the third quarter. I mean, excuse me, the second quarter, and there's times where Miami was just making good shots. But in the Hawks, I mean, they're not a good defensive team, but there are points where they really showed like they were putting good effort in, even if it wasn't directly leading into success, which I think you just didn't see much of at all in game one. Trae Young, as expected, was not held under single digits again. He finished with 25 points. He shot decently well from the field, 10 of 20, only 2 of 10 from three. Here's the thing that really hurt him, though. He had 10 turnovers, and he really struggled taking care of the ball. I mean, 10 turnovers indicate that. He had only 7 assists, 10 turnovers. Miami really, again, really got him into difficult positions where they put physicality on him, but not enough to draw a foul, which Trae after the game said that he feels like the context is too much, and that like he said basically, I think he said along the lines of if they're playing that physical, there's nothing we can do, which I think is a little bit of an extreme because Trae, obviously, you have to understand the playoff intensity is different, and he definitely knows that considering he played to the conference finals last year. But I think that's just something he'll have to adjust to. We also Atlanta's a very bad road team. They're only 16-25 on the road, but they are an incredible home team, which I'll get into later to determine this year. They're 27-14 at home, and I believe in their last 23 games at home, they're 20-3. So they've really been picking it up there, and they're honestly a different team there. But when looking into the other contributions, excuse me, sorry, where's the thing? John Collins at 13 points, 9 minutes. They put him back in the starting lineup. They elected to not play a true center because Okongwu didn't play that well in the game. So they started Gallinari and Collins. Collins had 13 points, 6 for 11 shooting. He also had a double-double. He had 10 rebounds as well. Gallinari struggled a lot this game. He didn't make a shot from the field. He only had 2 points in his 22 minutes, and he was a minus 11. Kevin Huerter also really struggled. He was only 3 for 10 and with 9 points, and also he had 5 fouls. DeAndre Hunter played decently well. He had 16 points, 6 for 15 from the field. Like I said, Trae had 25, but their best player in this game was Bogdanovic. In only 28 minutes, he was 12 of 18 from the field, 5-19 from three, 29 points, 3 assists as well. And one reason he could only play 28 was because he had 5 fouls. And foul trouble was a big problem for both teams in this game, which I'll definitely get into. But he was, like I said, he hit that incredible shot sidestep for Jimmy. He was hitting a bunch of shots. There's a period where I literally thought they might win the game just based on playing through him. And it was honestly very impressive. He's a very good player, I think, as we know. But when he's very streaky, when he gets hot, he is one of those guys that, like, he's not on the level of Steph Curry, but Thompson, but those second level guys who get hot, they can make 4 or 5 in a row. He's definitely in that class of group. And if we look into the Miami Heat contributions, it's a very unusual stat line. Normally, you do not see a player from the Heat. Normally, a game in the Heat have only 4 players in double figures is not one they're going to win because they rely so much on their depth and their depth and just sharing the scoring around. But today, Jimmy decided to have other hands, and I was loving every second of it. Jimmy had a career playoff high 45 points, 15 of 25 from the field, 4 of 7 from three, 11 of 12 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, no turnovers, and no fouls in 39 minutes. He was incredible. And it was to the point where I was watching with my friend, and I'm just like, this is, and I like Jimmy more as much as anyone, but some of the shit he was doing, I'm just like, there's no way this is actually Jimmy. Jimmy's like not good enough to, confidently just pull up from three with 18 seconds of the shot clock and switch it. He did that. I'm like, what? But no, he was amazing on both ends. He again, when he was guarding Trey was struggling most. He was whenever someone got hot, Jimmy was put on them, and he did a pretty good job disrupting them. He had a great run at the end when I said it was cut to three, where he gets a steal, dunks, gets a dunk, a separate dunk, and then hits a three of 7 points in 56 seconds. That really helped put the game away. He was aggressive. He took what I need to. I think we know something I love about something that I love Jimmy, that he does this in a lot of ways, but sometimes he's just too passive. He recognized that he needed to be the guy today. And I know he's a very capable scorer of when he wants to be. He's not like an elite level at those top guys, but if you need, he can get you buckets, and he is, and I will continue to say, he is still a top 10 caliber player. He's a future Hall of Fame, top 10 caliber player, and he can be the best player on the finals team still. I'm not saying I don't think he can be the best player on a championship team, but I think he can be the best player on a team to make the finals. And while I still have my Milwaukee coming out of the East, forbid they don't play like as they did against Chicago the next couple of days. Miami, I think, is very well as the team that could be the other half of that bracket. Let's see, is there anything else I want to point out? Yeah, it was really just interesting to show by Coach Spoelstra that he only played Duncan Robinson 7 minutes after his amazing performance in game one. He didn't even get a shot off. I mean, he did have 2 fouls, but it's interesting that just the adjustments that are made in playoff games. Players can play such huge roles for you one game and then literally be completely unutilized in others. That's how crazy the playoffs is. That's how important matchups are, which is definitely a concept I'm going to get into to the next game we talk about. But honestly, it was surprising that Duncan only played 7 minutes. It's because it wasn't like Max Strus played great. He had 14 points and 5-10 3, but playoffs are just something. Gabe Vincent played incredibly off the bench. His points went, and others have indicated necessarily. He had 11 points and 3 assists, 2 steals, but he was playing great defense on Trae Young and also some on Herder. And he's just a pest, and he's just a perfect Miami Heat type player. Bam Adebayo really struggled. He only got to play 24 minutes because he had 4 fouls. He had 9 points, 4 rebounds. Lowry only had 9 points and 2 assists. So when if this whole Heat team is fully playing and locked in, they're another level. Because normally they're not requiring Jimmy to do something like this. But the fact that he showed he can is optimistic, because obviously he had a really terrible 2021 playoffs against the Bucks. He didn't score 20 in any of those games, and he's made a much better start at the playoffs this year to prove that, bubble wasn't a fluke. But I think that's all we have to say for this one. Actually, please, I'm going to scratch that. So obviously game 3 is going to be in Atlanta. Miami is a pretty good road team. They were 24-17, I believe, on the road. I do think there's a good chance they could. I mean, I think the Heat are going to win game 3 and lose game 4 and then win back 5. Personally, I mean, I just think that the way that they're staying, their style is repeatable on the road because of how they do it. Defense travels, and they're obviously one of the best defensive teams in the league. I just think that you also know not having a true center and Bam not getting a foul trouble will be a big addition. And obviously, I just don't think they have someone who's physical enough to challenge Jimmy, and especially with there not being a slot plucking center at the rim, I think really can cause havoc. But yeah, I think that's all I'd say about this first game. Next, we're going to move into the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. Yeah, moving into game 2 of the Minnesota Grizzlies Timberwolves series. I think we were all surprised, honestly, that not all, but I think a lot of people were surprised what the result happened in game 1. I think just because how Memphis finished the regular season and how good they've been all year, and I think people have been, sleeping on Minnesota, which I've known that they're a good team all year. But I really think that it was a shock to a lot of people, and I think this game more seemed like what people thought the series was going to be. Memphis ended up winning by 28. They were in command for most of it. Like in the first half, there was times where it was kind of close. In the second half, they just really put on the gas pedal and showed how good of a team they were, and they came back to doing the Memphis Grizzlies things, because I think that was the thing that was the most surprising personally to me, was that Memphis, it wasn't that just Memphis lost, but they lost in the ways that they don't know, the ways that they normally dominate the rest of the league. Like I said before, they were the number 1 rebounding team. They got out rebounded significantly by an average rebounding team in Minnesota in game won, but they changed that today. They won the boards 48 to 10, 48 to 8, 48 to 40, and they had 10 more offensive rebounds. They had 14 offensive rebounds to 4, which isn't crazy considering Steven Adams only played 3 minutes, which is another adjustment again too, and he didn't have any. John Morant had 2, Jaren Jackson Jr. had 5, Xavier Tillman off the bench at 4. They just got a lot of guys who collectively helped in on the glass, and they got a lot of good scoring from a number of different sources, which has been this Memphis Grizzlies team all year. John Morant led the way with 23. He was a lot better than he was in game 1. He had 23 points, 9 of 16 from the field, 2 for 3, 3 for 3 to the line, 10 assists, 9 rebounds, only 2 turnovers. He was a plus 24 in his 30 minutes. They got a good game from Desmond Bane, who struggled pretty hard in game 1. He gave you 16 points and 50% shooting. They got 16 from Jaren Jackson Jr., who, after going 0 for 5 and 3 in game 1, was 4 for 7. He had 16 points, 7 rebounds, 1 block. Dylan Brooks only gave a 9 on 3 for 11 shooting, but the bench of the Memphis really helped. They had 4 double-figure scores on their bench. Those were Brandon Clark, who had 13 points in 21 minutes. Xavier Tillman, who had 13 points in 21 minutes as well. Also 7 rebounds. They also had 10 points from Tyus Jones, who's one of the best backup point guards of the league. Also chipped in 4 rebounds, 3 assists with only 1 turnover. And also Zaire Williams, who's a guy who has been seen as was a lottery pick this last year, who's seen as a guy with a lot of potential, but is really raw. Had a good game as well. He had 13 points in 19 minutes. Yeah, they just got a really good collective group scoring, and I honestly it's been that way all year. As good as John Morant's been, it's been a collective unit scoring. For the season they had 5 guys in double figures per points per game. And they also have so many others on their bench. They're such a deep team. Like they went 13 out in this game, and that's honestly crazy. Okay, well, 11 people played at least 15 minutes, which is significant in a playoff game. And that wasn't just because they were up by a lot. Memphis does legitimately have 10 or 11 guys that they believe could help impact winning on a playoff caliber level, and they are. The interesting adjustment, like I referred to earlier, was Steven Adams only playing 3 minutes. I think that Taylor Jenkins, who is one of the best coaches in the league, just saw that it's a nightmare matchup against Cat because of how much Cat plays on the perimeter, because Steven Adams is the most laterally quick. They just decided that wasn't going to be a good fit for them, and I don't think that's disrespectful to Steven Adams to say that, assuming, which we're pretty sure Memphis gets to the second round, I think his role could be utilized again. I just think against this team, it's a nightmare matchup just because of how unique of a talent Cat is as a shooter from the center position. It's just difficult. And also Nasreed to a lesser extent, but it's not a great series for him. When we go to the Minnesota side, Anthony Edwards wasn't terrible. He was 7 for 16. He had 20 points, but 5 turnovers, and obviously just wasn't nearly as good as he was in game 1. Cat only took 7 shots at 28 minutes with 15 points and 11 rebounds. He had foul trouble. He had 5 fouls. He also had 5 turnovers. He just didn't play great. Patrick Beverley was pretty rough, but normally he's not a player that's going to elevate your team if your rest of your team is playing not well, just because that's not what he's capable. D'Angelo Russell was really struggling these first 2 games. He only had 11 points in this game, 3 for 11. And I remember I was watching First Things First on FS1, and first we started talking about how this was the team that D'Angelo Russell honestly played the best against in the regular season. So honestly, it was interesting to see that he really been struggling in these playoff games, and I think he'll probably turn around. I got some okay bench contributions from Nasreed with 12 and Torian Prince with 12. They just didn't shoot well from the field overall. They were 40% from the field, 29% from 3. They had 19 turnovers, while Memphis only had 9. Memphis shot pretty okay from the field, 48%, 32% from 3, which is all right. But they had 29 assists, which is a very high number. They played really good team basketball, and that's what we've known Memphis to be when Memphis is at their best, they're playing a team thing. As good as Ja isn't, they don't play like a heliocentric style like the Mavs do with Luka, for example. The Mavs really do try to use the Memphis really does try to use a lot of different players that really well round their team, and I think it really does work when they're all clicking together. It's a really hard thing to beat. They're heading to Minnesota for game 3. I do think this is a chance to be a 6-game series. I think Minnesota will take one of them at home. I mean, they are very good. They're a pretty good road team. They're 20 home team, excuse me. They're 26 and 15. Memphis was very good at home. They had the same record on the road as them, but I just think that Minnesota, that crowd in that playing game, that was incredible, man. So I think that Minnesota might take one of these next two, but I think it was good for people that really had. There are a lot of people that picked the Grizzlies to be in the finals, and I think this really helped reaffirm, at least for a bit, that there was just a one game mess up. They underestimated their opponent. They did stuff like that, and I think this is gonna be a very good series, especially for a 1-8. But we're gonna move into the last game of the night, which was definitely a shocker. And yeah, we're gonna talk about the last game of the night with the Pelicans and the Suns. They ended about like they all these fuckers do because I'm in Eastern time, like 12:30, which I hate because I've got school and I want to do these recaps ideally right after, but it's 12:30 and I go sleep for school. That's why I'm doing this one. It's 1:40 right now, but it's whatever. But this one was definitely a bit of a surprise. I think a lot of people thought, especially after game one, that just the Pelicans are not on close enough level to really compete in any game in this series with the Suns, and that they just kind of got lucky at the play. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of was part of that crowd. As much as I have respect for Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and everyone on the roster, just the way that the Suns have played all year, you just don't think that they're going to fall into a trap like that, especially with their incredible 32-9 record at home when the Pelicans were 17-24 on the road. It was just definitely surprising. Unlike the Memphis one, I get to watch this game pretty well. This game really pretty focused on like directly, as well as the Miami one, because also it wasn't on NBA TV, so I didn't have to switch back and forth. But yeah, definitely a surprise. I think Brandon Ingram reminded us just how good of a player he is. I think because the Pelicans haven't, well, for most of the season weren't really in the plan, and because of almost all the conversation was when Zion coming back, we forgot how good of a player Brandon Ingram was. Just 2 years ago, he was the most improved player, was an all-star, and he's gotten so much more well-rounded since then. He is a legit all-around player. He played pretty good defense. He had 37 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists, a steal, a block. He spent a decent amount of time on Bridges. So was guarding a defensive matchup that was important. 13 for 21 from the field, 3 of 3 from 3, 8 of 8 from the free throw line. His efficiency has just grown so much. And especially when he's hitting threes, because he only hit like 31% during their season, even though, past couple of years he's been a way higher, like high 30s. His mid-range game was really going in. He's also gotten a lot better at using his ability to get inside the paint, and he's a strong finisher in there, despite being having a pretty slender frame because of athleticism and everything. He played a very good game, and Herbert Jones again is a rookie that I think we need to start talking about more. Potentially, he needs to be on the all-rookie second team, and maybe Eden has a case for all-rookie first team with his defense. His raw numbers don't show it. He had 14 points, only one rebound with 3 assists and a steal, but 5-8 from the field, 2 of 8, 3 from 3, a +4. He played 41 minutes. He spent a lot of time on Chris Paul, especially in that second half when Booker went out, which we're going to definitely talk about. And he had a very impactful game. Jonas Valanciunas played a lot better than he did in that. He still only didn't play major minutes. He only played 26, but he had 10 points and 13 rebounds and was closer to being okay from the field. He did have 4 fouls and 4 turnovers, but otherwise than that, he played much better. I mean, they didn't need him to be great today, and he just responded with being average. CJ McCollum really struggled early on, but got it to go in the fourth quarter. I believe he had 11 of his 23 points then. He was only 7 for 18 in the field, but he was 6 for 10 from 3. So very odd stat line, 1 for 8 from the 2, 6 for 10 from 3. Also had 8 rebounds and 9 assists, showing his all-around game, and really has been their point guard since he got there, and he's done a good job with that. Larry Nance Jr. has continued to play well off the bench since the plan started. This game, he had 13, 6 and 2, ±8. He's really been playing good recently. He has the activity on the boards. He's been defending at a pretty high level. He stepped out and hit a 3. He's just been very impressive. And I mean, I think we know he's been a good role player for a number of years now. I think when initially, when we first came to the league, people a little bit more was expected of him than realistic. But I think now that he knows what his role is, he's a veteran in the league. He's been playing very, very well in that role, and he's been closing these games. I also have to give more credit to 2 other rookies. Jose Alvarado, who the 6-foot rookie out of Georgia Tech, who I've been a fan of since his Georgia Tech days. I remember 2020 tournament, me and my dad watching ACC tournament championship when we're talking about broadcast about this guy that's 6 feet tall but won the defensive player of the year in the ACC, and I'm like, what? But the dude has earned it. The dude is so pesky and feisty defensively at 6 feet tall. His offensive game has honestly surprised me. He's a very good offensive player. He's confident. He was 8 points, 3 for 3. He's very good. He was just a pest defensively. He made it harder for Chris Paul at times. He's a very smart player too. He just really helps give them like a Tyus Jones type identity off the bench that Memphis has. And Trey Murphy also has played so good in these recent games. He had 20 minutes. He had 9 points. 3 of his 5 threes, 3 steals as well. He's just been those rookies have been very impactful for them. And obviously surprising on a young team when rookies, especially ones that aren't initially picked out to be, high level as seen as a high end prospects, performing this well is honestly impressive. And they've played major roles in. I don't think they're going to win this series, obviously, but I think if you can get Zion Williamson into shape next year with this team, they legitimately could be a 5 seed or something. They have it. So I really believe in Willie Green as a coach. I believe in his ability to motivate players and also just his ability to get a locker room to win. It's just, I really think that they're capable of doing that, all those things. But yeah, so looking at the Suns' point of view, Devin Booker, I'm guessing you guys have all heard, but Devin Booker left the game in the third quarter. He had an amazing first half of 31 points, but because he left early in the third quarter, it's all he would finish with. He was 12 for 19, 7, 11, 3. He was really getting it to go, which made him, when he went out, just that much more of a standing. We played 25 minutes. But yeah, so he had a hamstring injury, which I believe is the same hamstring that he had when he missed that time earlier in the season when I believe it was during the end of the Suns streak of, when they went an entire month without losing. But his absence was definitely felt, especially in the fourth quarter, because Chris Paul was just not able to replicate the masterpiece he had in game 1. He was still pretty okay. She didn't shoot well, but he had 17 points and 14 assists with 0 turnovers. But he was only 5-16 from the field, 2 of 6 from 3. But 14 assists and no turnovers is just magnificent. Mikal Bridges played pretty well. He had 19 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. But his defense was surprisingly just like a little bit lesser than it's been or what we've expected from him. He didn't play great defensively. It wasn't like a lack of effort. I think people had unprecedented success against him, which happens at times because good offense beats good defense always. But I really think DeAndre Ayton played okay. 10 points, 9 rebounds, 33 minutes, 4-6. I kind of wish I just feel like he could have asserted himself more. But again, obviously, he's a center to get the ball. He took a couple. I know he took 6 shots, but there's a couple jumpers that I felt ill-advised, at least in terms of the motion of the game in the fourth quarter. They're down by like 6, and a DeAndre Ayton's step back or pull-up jumper is not really your best shot. It isn't. But yeah, their bench contributions are all right. Cam Johnson had 11 points in 26 minutes, although he's only 4 for 10 for the field, 1 of 6 from 3. Aaron Payton played okay, 6 points, 17 minutes. JaVale McGee had his nice impact of 10 points in 15 minutes. And they got a number 1 overall well-rounded contributions, but it really just feels like overall they could do it. But I think that's going to wrap it up for everything for today. Thanks for listening as always, and I'll see you next time.